And we're finally back after what turned out to be the longest break without a video this channel has seen in quite some time, thanks to my computer deciding to die out of nowhere. But things are back up and running now, and just in time for the NHL Entry Draft in 2022. And with that just a few days away, there's no more time to waste. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back for the preview of the 2022 NHL Entry Draft, or at least the first few picks of it anyway, since we're largely Kraken focused here, this being the second ever entry draft that the Kraken have been a part of, drafting second overall in last year's draft where they took Matty Beniers, who played fantastic for 10 games. Unfortunately, the rest of the season wasn't great, so they'll be picking fourth overall in this year's draft. And again, to just jump right into it, that obviously then means that there are three other teams that do draft before the Kraken. The first, as you likely well know, being the host city in the Montreal Canadiens, who are drafting first not because they're the host city, though some people with lotto conspiracy theories might think otherwise, but just because they had a miserable season. Now, the first overall pick is one that for a long time has been obviously Shane Wright. Now, over the course of this last season, that has become a little bit less obvious, but I still think it's pretty likely that Shane Wright does end up going first overall here to Montreal. The 18-year-old, or I mean, I guess all these guys are 18 years old, so we can kind of just skip over that part, but then with obviously still some room to grow over the next few years, at this point he's still a 6-foot, 200-pound center that shoots from the right side. And while again, he has slipped a little bit from the obvious consensus first overall pick due to some lack of goal production in this last season, he was still able to produce plenty of points, just opting to pass the puck more than actually shoot it himself, and is still a fantastic all-around center and fits exactly what the Canadiens need and should be looking for. So again, it seems like a pretty obvious pick for them to take him first overall. Moving on then to the second overall pick, which, at least for now anyway, belongs to the New Jersey Devils, but honestly, regardless of whether or not they use it or trade it away, I could see any one of three different guys going in this spot. But if it is the Devils who end up using this pick, the one that I think is most likely to end up in New Jersey would be the big forward in Juraj Slafkovsky. Now, as tends to be the case with European players, especially Eastern European players, Slafkovsky is a little bit more of an unknown than some of the North American players in this draft. But as a result, that might mean that he could have gotten overlooked if it wasn't for the fact that over this last year, he really did shine in international play especially, most highlighted by his 7 goals in 7 games at the Olympics that ended up getting not only his team a medal, but also earned him the Olympic MVP. And then he also managed to follow that up with another impressive performance at the Worlds, where he put up 9 points in 8 games with 3 goals and 6 assists. But it wasn't just these international tournaments, he also played in the Finnish Elite League, where he played in 31 games, putting up 5 goals and 5 assists for 10 points. On top of a very good playoffs, where he ended up finishing with another 7 points in 18 games, another 2 goals and 5 assists there. All of which has seen him significantly rise up the draft boards over the course of this last year. And of course, even if his play is somewhat unknown, although all of these teams have perfectly good international scouting, the one thing that is not an unknown is his size at 6'4", 220 pounds. Sure, he could still fill into that 6'4" frame a little bit more, but this is a power forward that could really add some physical aspect to the front end or top 6 of any team that he ends up going to. And as far as New Jersey is concerned, with that potentially putting him on a line with a Jack Hughes or Nico Hischier, that's something that they might well be looking at. Of course, if the Devils do go that route and take Slafkovsky second overall, then that would mean that they likely passed on Logan Cooley. I mean, if they didn't pass on Cooley to get Slafkovsky, then that means they would have passed on Shane Wright, which I don't think is going to happen. Either way, Cooley does seem like the most likely other guy that could go second overall. But why I think the Devils would go Slafkovsky over Cooley is simply because Cooley is already committed to the University of Minnesota for this next season and couldn't help the Devils right away. And the Devils are definitely one of these teams taking towards the beginning of the draft that are looking to get things turned around sooner rather than later. Meanwhile, for the team picking third in the Arizona Coyotes, well, the Coyotes are, let's just say, a little bit more of a wild card when it comes to just about anything that they do. They're not going to be quite so bothered by a guy that can't play right away, as, well, he's not going to make a huge difference to how this next season goes for them, especially with them likely looking to try to get that first overall pick next year. Not to mention the fact that with Cooley coming up from college to the Coyotes at the end of the season, well, the Coyotes are already playing at a college anyway, so that would work out pretty well. Plus, Cooley is actually the next best player and would be the obvious pick for the Coyotes to make, which seems like a hard thing for them to screw up. Not that they couldn't do it. Like Slafkovsky, Cooley shoots from the left side, but aside from that, there's not a ton of other similarities other than them both being forwards and good enough to be worthy of a top 3 pick. Unlike Slafkovsky, who's a winger, Cooley plays at the center position, and while Slafkovsky is again a much larger player, Cooley is on the smaller side at just 5'10", 180 pounds. Still, he's been able to make good use of his size and ability to put up points at a very high rate in his time with the US development team and USHL team. I mean, just in this last year alone, Cooley managed to put up 75 points in the 51 games he played for the national U18 team on 27 goals and 48 assists. And then with the US development juniors team, he put up another 36 points in 24 games with another 13 goals and 23 assists there. So, unlike Slafkovsky, who, again, due to where he plays, hasn't had the breadth of games and a whole ton to put on his resume, Cooley has a very well flushed out resume, especially as a points producer. But also, as you would like to be the case with anybody taken this high in a draft, he isn't just a pure points producer, constantly being praised everywhere he goes for his hockey sense and feel for the game, and his ability to contribute to the play even away from the puck at both ends of the ice, which is especially important when opposing teams are sending a lot of their attention his way. So, at least from a Kraken perspective, if he were to fall to the 4th overall pick, which I'm not sure is terribly likely to happen, he does fit a lot of things that the Kraken need and should be looking for in this draft. Outside of the fact that, again, like Beniers last year, he wouldn't be able to play until the very end of the season. That having been said, unless the Kraken make some big moves in free agency, which, to be fair, it sounds like they might well be lined up to do, they're still a ways away from being that playoff contending team that you would need to have the hopes of being if you were going to go all in on picking a guy that can contribute right away. And by the sounds of things, it's probably going to take Cooley, or I guess in some pretty much impossible situation, somehow Shane Wright falling to the Kraken, to convince them to not take a defenseman in this draft. And even if it is Cooley, that's not a guarantee that they wouldn't overlook him and go defense anyway. In this particular situation with those 3 guys taken first, that's likely Simon Nimitz. By most accounts, the best defenseman available in this draft, and also by most accounts, the player most likely to end up getting picked by Seattle, Nemes is a 6'1", 190-pound defenseman who shoots from the right side, which certainly also helps his draft prospects. Much like his Slovakian countryman in Slafkovsky, he might not have the most statistically flushed out resume, at least compared to some North American players, but again, like Slafkovsky, he has played on the Slovakian national team for the last couple of years, and has also spent the last couple of years playing in Slovakia's Pro League, where he has done pretty well from the blue line, putting up points. Well, sure, he doesn't put the puck in the back of the net himself very often. He does find ways to get it to people that can do that. Coming off of his previous season, where he put up 19 points on 2 goals and 17 assists in 37 games, in this last year, also with HK Nitra in the Slovakian Pro League, he put up 26 points, this time with just 1 goal but 25 assists in a similar 39 games. Meanwhile, at the international level, at least over this last year, it was a little bit more of a mixed bag. At the International Juniors tournament, he was a point-per-game player with 7 points in 7 games. Again, just 1 goal and 6 assists, so not a lot of putting the puck in himself. But then at the Olympics, well, again, his teammate in Slafkovsky became the tournament MVP. He only managed 1 point on 1 assist in those same 7 games. Still, more recently, he has finished strong. Back in the Slovakian League, in the playoffs, he had a record-setting 17 points in 19 games, this time 5 of those being goals and 12 of them assists. And then followed that up with another fantastic showing this time at the Worlds Tournament, where he put up 6 points in 8 games, again back to just the 1 goal and 5 assists. But of course, as is the case especially with any defenseman, points production tells far from the full story. Especially when it comes to a player who is considered a potential top 5 or top 4 overall pick. He is responsible at all ends of the ice and a very good all-way player, but is especially noted for his poise with the puck and ability to move it up ice in a controlled manner, something that Seattle had issues with during the season. And then once in the offensive zone, is very good at quarterbacking plays and getting that puck maybe through a teammate, to the net, which shows up in those assist numbers that we've seen. Again, something that could be very useful for Seattle, especially on, say, a power play down the road. Now, there still is the very possible situation that Nemeth is gone at 4 when it's Seattle's turn, likely then either taken 2nd or 3rd overall. In which case, either Cooley or Slafkovsky would be available for Seattle to take, and especially considering, at least as far as I'm concerned, I'd really like to see Seattle take a forward in this draft at that 4th overall pick, where I think they could use a lot more help than on the defensive end, and especially if it was Cooley, I'd like to see them scoop him up. However, even with Nemeth gone, or honestly they could still go with a different defenseman over Nemeth with that 4th overall pick if he's there. Either way, the other option on the defensive end, and again another right shot defenseman, would be David Jiricek. As compared to Nemeth, Jiricek does offer a slightly bigger frame at 6'3" to Nemeth's 6'1". Both of them, though, are right around that 190 mark when it comes to the LBs. That having been said, both of them are again 18 years old, and there's still some years of growth that could come for either one of them. So, not a huge difference as far as size is concerned, and as far as playstyle is concerned, both, again, very good at both ends of the ice. Nemeth may be a little bit more controlled with the puck than Jiricek, but Jiricek, what he has over Nemeth in this particular draft at least, is that he comes with what is very likely the hardest shot of any player in the draft. And he's decently accurate with it as well, especially considering the scheming of the Kraken and their propensity to shoot from the blue line. That could be something that they're tempted into looking at. Again, especially attached to that slightly bigger frame. And at least when it comes to goal scoring, the potential goal scoring that hard shot that he has offers does show up a little bit in his stats with his Czechia Pro team, where he put up 11 points in this last year in 29 games, with 5 of those being goals and 6 of them being assists. A much more even goals to assist ratio than we saw with Nemeth, even if the overall points production is down. Still though, even outside of purely shooting the puck, even if at this point Nemeth has shown a more advanced ability to quarterback a breakout and effectively move the puck up the ice and then again quarterback a play from the blue line once in the offensive zone, Jiricek too has also gotten some notoriety for especially having accurate passing, and while there's more to moving a breakout along than accurate passing, as any Kraken fan can tell you, there are definitely times throughout this season when we would have happily taken just accurate passing to start with. And as we get closer to wrapping things up, for those of you who aren't Kraken fans, or maybe more specifically are Flyers fans, we might as well wrap up the top 5 with the Flyers picking right after the Kraken. And if the first 4 go the way that I think they will, with the Kraken taking Nemeth and those other 3 going 1, 2, 3, then Jiricek is probably the guy that the Flyers end up going with. Now, while I do think at this point, from everything we've heard, it's very much most likely that the Kraken either get one of those 2 defensemen, Nemeth or Jiricek. Personally, for me, when it gets to that 4th overall pick, again, assuming those first 3 picks go the way that I expect them to, and neither Cooley or Slafkovsky are available at the 4th overall pick, and honestly, even if Slafkovsky is, the guy that I would like to see the Kraken take would be Matthew Savoie. Now, like Cooley, Savoie is also on the smaller side at the age of 18. He's just 5'9", 180 pounds, but also like Cooley is a center, which, although the Kraken do have a fair amount of center depth, they could probably use some more high-end talent at the center position. And on top of that, they could also move some guys around to wing and stuff like that to make it work, whether it's Savoie that would go to wing or one of their other centers. Again, unfortunately, I don't think that it's terribly likely that the Kraken end up drafting Savoie, and either one of those 2 defensemen would still be a very solid pick for the Kraken to end up getting at that 4th overall spot. Still, I bring up Savoie because he brings something that the Kraken desperately need, and that is someone that can put the puck in the back of the net. Savoie, even with him being small, and maybe because he's small, looks like probably the most skilled player with the puck in this entire draft, especially at the offensive end of the ice, where when it comes to points production, at least over this last year at the WHL level, he was pretty much unmatched, where he was able to put up 90 points in 65 games with 35 goals and 55 assists. And a lot of that, again, also came on the power play, which is something that he is somewhat known for as a power play specialist, which isn't to say that he isn't also very good 5-on-5 and constantly beating players 1-on-1 in the offensive zone and in transition, but especially on the power play, he again is pretty proficient at getting the puck in the net. Again, something that the Kraken could very much use help with. In the end though, while Savoy may very well be the most exciting player to watch of any of the players in this draft, he might not offer quite as much of an all-rounded game as a Shane Wright, for example, or even a Logan Cooley. And really, the only way that the Kraken would even consider someone like Savoy is if both of those two defensemen went in the top 3 picks. And if that were to happen, then the Kraken are much more likely to take Cooley or Slafkovsky. So, yeah, probably no Savoy, sadly, for at least me anyway. That all said, though, I'd love to know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Are you happy to hear that the Kraken are thinking about taking one of those two defensemen, especially considering they are both right-shot defensemen and very good players in their own right? Or, like me, would you rather see the Kraken get a little bit more help on the forward end and another legitimate top 6 forward to help out a somewhat lacking top 6 that the Kraken have at that end of the ice? Of course, it is also worth mentioning that the Kraken still, as of right now anyway, do have 4 picks in the second round, and Ron Francis did say that he was hoping to maybe move one of those picks, either via a trade for a current NHL player, or maybe packaging a couple of them to move up again into the first round with a second first-round pick. Personally, I'd like to see them either use those picks or get an NHL player, but we'll see what happens there. Again, the second round is a little bit more of a unknown than, say, the top 5 picks in a draft, and especially considering their second round pick last year was what a lot of people thought was a big reach, and with Riker Evans has turned out to be a pretty good player so far anyway. Who knows what they'll end up doing with any one of those 4 picks. As always though, if you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below that help support the channel, and I appreciate using them. Until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken!